Across the globe, cultures come together to celebrate creativity, humanity, and connection. Festivals and conventions, one-off moments, and annual traditions, they can all bring groups together and change the way we see the world. I'm Daniel Roth, and this is Event Explorer. This episode, we're heading to the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan, to explore the Invention Convention Worldwide, a program that's reaching hundreds of thousands of students across the country and teaching them how to think like innovators. This is an event, a competition, a movement, where students identify real-world problems, design solutions, build prototypes, and ultimately present their ideas on a national stage. At the center of it all is the National Invention Convention, where the best young inventors from across the U.S. come together to share their ideas and, more importantly, learn from the process. Today, we're going behind the scenes with the people making it happen, from how the program works in classrooms to what it takes to produce a national event at this scale. Our guests are helping make the future a little more creative for all of us. Let's head to the Henry Ford. I'd like to welcome Carolyn Ward and Phil Grumm to the show from the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan, where Carolyn is the Senior Director of Learning Engagement, Outreach, and Impact, and Phil is the Head of Learning and Engagement. Together, they are leading the work behind the National Invention Convention, bringing students from across the country together to showcase their ideas and innovations. And today we'll get into how the program works, the journey from the classroom to the national stage, and what it takes to bring an event like this to life. Great to have you both here. Thank you for joining.
Thanks for having us.
Excellent. I was excited to tell this story. This isn't just the story of one event. This is the story of a movement across the country. It's an educational movement. It is a kind of STEAM or STEAMy, as we'll get into, movement to get kids working together, thinking about innovating, and really prepare them for these 21st century careers, jobs, and ways of thinking that didn't exist 20 years ago, and maybe even some of these, 3 to 5 years ago, as the world is changing so fast, which sounds like a pretty interesting place to be working, at that kind of crossroads of education and technology. So let's talk about your jobs and kind of how you got here a little bit. Carolyn, I'd love to start with you. When did you first join the Henry Ford, and kind of how did you come to the Invention Convention?
I've been at the Henry Ford now for over 20 years, which is crazy because it's blink and I've seen a lot. I actually started in the marketing department. I ran sponsorships and membership, and then got involved with the educational team and did a lot of the marketing for the educational team over the years. I led a lot of the brand work at the Henry Ford. And then when we got involved with Invention Convention, I had this opportunity to kind of take on a leadership role and help scale it across the country. And that's happened really since the pandemic. So it's been a really amazing experience to have that role and work with folks all over the country who have kind of shared purpose and want to inspire the next generation of problem solvers. So it really is kind of the culmination of years at the Henry Ford, and maybe my favorite job so far.
Amazing. Oh, so that's great to hear. Not everyone can say that, I think, as they move through their career. So you really found a great place. Speaking of which, also a veteran of the Henry Ford, Phil, you've been there quite a bit. You've worn a lot of different hats. If you could take us back, as I'm very familiar with the Henry Ford, but in your explanation of all the great work you do, can you give us a little bit kind of the nickel tour of what the Henry Ford actually is?
Yeah, sure. So I think first of all, like for me, when it comes to working at the Henry Ford, right, it's we're a museum, we're an outdoor living history museum, but I think museums just aren't simply about artifacts. They're really about activating ideas, people, and community. And so for us at the Henry Ford, it really starts with our mission. And our mission is to really inspire that next generation of innovators, inventors, creative thinkers to really help recognize and realize their own innovative potential to really shape a better future, not only for themselves, but for the people that they work with, the people that they live around, their families, their friends, and their communities at large. And in my time at the Henry Ford, I've spent it all I've been here for about 15 years, and I've spent it all in this educational and learning space. And I think for me, what's really exciting about, where I've been and where we're going is with sort of the advancements in technology today. Um, it's so much easier for us as an institution to make impact beyond our own brick and mortar buildings. And we can really do some incredible like outreach and connection to people across Michigan, across the country, and really across the globe, which I think is the best part of doing this, is we interface and can connect with so many different people from so many different backgrounds.
I bet that was a huge draw in starting out with your career at the Henry Ford. What were those first years like? Where did you start out?
Yeah, so I was brought in really for a grant funded project, which again, Carolyn and I are lucky to do what we do because we're supported by some pretty incredible funders and partners that support the work that we do on top of the institution itself. But I was brought in because in about 2010, we created a curriculum using oral histories from innovators like Martha Stewart, Bill Gates, and others, that we were collecting their stories that might have been seemingly difficult to collect at the time with physical objects, but how do we capture their stories and their journeys? And we created a curriculum called Innovation 101. And this was all really about like breaking down what makes someone innovative and what are the different habits and the actions that innovators practice on a daily basis to take their ideas all the way from just the conceptual bit to reality in the world.
Wow. A huge scope, and one that is really exciting. It doesn't sound like it's been really explored in this way before, and one that feeds directly into what you're doing now, that you learned kind of how how innovation is fostered and how innovation comes to life. And now you're putting that into practice on a daily basis with thousands of kids across the United States. And sounds like really fulfilling a mission. I know I've been to the Henry Ford over 30, 40 times, I think, in my life. Now that I have an 11-year-old sitting upstairs that's spent a lot of time there. And it's been a fantastic gift to us as parents, of just being able to kind of walk through history there, and to think of, the machines and the different kind of techniques and things that just, pop off. Well, a lot of the kids are reading these through history books, or, just maybe watching videos on the internet, but these are things that are hands-on, and you can see that kind of chronology of innovation over the past 200-ish years, particularly that are alive there at the museum. So, this mission of exploring innovation, and exploring, how inventions come to life is obviously ties into what we're here to talk about today, the Invention Convention. Now, in my looking at events and places where people come together, where we build culture, this is and we did talk about Maker Fests about a year and a half ago with Dale Doherty. So he's kind of one of these like godfathers of the Maker Fest kind of ethos. But then your mission is broadened out and has really gotten into schools. How did Invention Convention start? Carolyn, you want to take us back a little bit to the history of this organization? I know Henry Ford kind of came in and really gave it this boost that is now kind of helping to run it. But it started, a little bit grassroots, a little bit from an educator perspective.
Yeah, it started organically. And back to your point about maker fairs, I mean, the Henry Ford hosted a maker fair for about 10 years, and Phil and I had the privilege of working on that. And that was a really amazing expression for the Michigan community to come and show their ideas. And my kids grew up at Maker Faire. I loved it. And so we kind of transitioned from Maker Faire to Invention Convention, which brought this type of work and then some into the classrooms. But invention conventions have been going on for 30 plus years in different parts of the country, led by some passionate educators who really believe in invention education and the powers of it, and kind of unleashing that creative, inventive mindset. And so it was back, I want to say like 10 plus years ago, that the program in Connecticut saw this opportunity to host a National Invention Convention and a competition for these kids who were, participating at the local level to kind of showcase their ideas. And we were introduced to them because we were doing similar type of work. Could have even been introduced to them by Dale Doherty, I don't remember, but there's a lot of folks that play in the same space. And we were at a forum and met them and got involved, and they didn't have the program in Michigan. So we initially signed up and brought the program just as the Michigan program affiliate. And then there became an opportunity to really take over the national organizing role. And so that really aligned to the vision of what the Henry Ford was doing, is we're seeking to our 100th anniversary, which is coming up in a few years, 2029. We were all about like having a bigger outreach opportunity and program. And so Invention Convention aligned really well to that vision from the institutional standpoint, to kind of offer this to more students and be a bigger part of this. So we took on that role. And so the program is here because our purpose is as an institution, inspire the next generation of problem solvers and seekers and inventors and entrepreneurs. And we really believe these students have the power to change the world, and we want to provide as many tools to help them do that.
Amazing, amazing. And Phil, take us through a little bit of kind of how this comes to life. For those not familiar with Invention Convention, how does it kind of populate in the schools? And then what is that network like where it becomes a little bit of a competition?
Yeah, so I think the wonderful thing about Invention Convention is it has a very sort of low barrier to participate in it. And what I mean by that is we see a lot of definitely educators and teachers in classrooms engaging with this, but it also, when we speak up to, we use the language educators, right? Because that could mean anything from a K through 12 classroom teacher. It could even mean anyone who's sort of like an inventor mentor for someone, anyone who helps guide a young person along their journey, homeschool parents, out of school time programs. It's really flexible and can kind of fit into many different spaces. And so really what we do and how we support sort of this program getting out to the world is we have a really great online community called InHub. And InHub is home to a platform and about 13,000 plus educators. Again, could be homeschool parents, could be K through 12 classroom teachers, district administrators. They can sign up for this and join InHub for free, where they get access to all the tools and toolkit that you would need to really participate and start doing invention education in their classroom. So it kind of starts from that place of accessing the resources. And as you progress through that, kids are encountering, and young inventors, every journey is really unique. No one journey looks the same. However, they're doing very similar things where they're working through this invention steps or process where they're identifying problems. So that could be maybe a problem that they're feeling or encountering in their life, or maybe it's something a grandparent's struggling with. Even we see a lot of inventions related to pets, and which really kind of shows the empathy that young people have and just the desire to solve problems. And from that point, after they've identified and really clearly defined what the problem or the need it is they're trying to solve, then they go into this whole process of designing, testing, prototyping, and creating something, an invention that really solves and matches to that problem. And that can look anywhere from, we've seen some incredibly technological inventions that use Arduino boards and different tech, but then it could be as simple as cardboard prototypes to really just be able to clarify and communicate your concept. So there isn't really one way to prototype. It comes in all different shapes and sizes. And then as they progress through that process and those steps, what they're doing then is to participate in the competition, right? If you think of a science fair meets a Shark Tank sort of episode, students then are creating a like a trifold display board is the typical thing we see, and they're creating tools that allow them to communicate what their idea is, why it matters, maybe why it's unique in this space, and then how it works. And the other kind of evidence package that they create as well is they have a logbook. So through this entire journey that they're on, they're really documenting this, which is incredibly important for invention. When you think of intellectual property and you think about the different steps and where are the challenges, you're going to fail. You're going to have to take some risks. And so how do you kind of create that journey and that story, and they document that. And when they come and participate in these competitions, it might happen at a classroom level, could happen at a school level. It could be a regional competition that feeds into a state. But what they're doing in these places then is they're communicating and effectively pitching their ideas to judges, who then are sort of assessing them on those different key pieces of what was the process. So it's not just about, does your invention work or is it a good idea? It's also, what's the growth in the journey that you went through? What are the struggles? What are the wins? What are the losses? How did you navigate that? So it's more than just an invention competition. And that's why we really talk about this as an educational program, because there's some significant growth that you can really track for students through this entire process.
Incredible. Yeah, we kind of have this picture of the inventor in the lab, maybe thick glasses and a white trench coat, or a white, scientist get up. And you don't think about that person. If an invention gets to your house or reaches your job or is alive in the world, they had to have the tools to take that invention and bring it out into the world for people to understand it. They had to have there's a sales kind of aspect or a performative aspect of this that's so important. And as we teach hard sciences and math, and what I think the STEAM kind of focus has been, without the art side or without this kind of performative side or this communication side, a lot of that work can feel kind of trapped on the paper or trapped in the computer screen and not something that interacts with the world. So that's why I think this program just is so inspiring and is incredible, because a lot of people, if you're public speaking, can kind of take over and it can keep a lot of people from truly expressing themselves or making the difference that they know in their heart that they can make, but they don't have the tools to get it out there into the world and share it and be a part of a group versus, just having kind of the solution in your head and not being able to get it out and test it. Very cool. Very cool. Carolyn, how does that manifest across the United States? So we've got schools, you've got independent clubs, we have state level competition, and then I'm kind of building up to this national event that you all host at the Henry Ford. But how are these teams kind of constructed in getting their way to the national competition?
Yeah. We have a network of program affiliates across the country, around 30 of them right now. We want to actively be in all 50 states. So we're working really hard to recruit other organizations to do this. Those program affiliates could be universities like Purdue, Virginia Tech, Texas A&M, Utah State, Oregon State. They could be cultural institutions like the Henry Ford. We have cultural institutions that do this as well. And they could be nonprofit educational organizations that just really believe in this. And so we have a state level organizer that really runs the state program, and then they might work with a network of local partners to help distribute it across their state. So for instance, here in Michigan, we run the state level affiliate as well, but then we work with Eastern Michigan and folks up in the Upper Peninsula at Michigan Tech and Wayne State University in Detroit, to help bring this program to the local community. And so they're conducting educator professional development sessions to kind of introduce them to the curriculum and provide them with the tools to bring this into the classroom. It really takes, anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks to work on these projects in class or outside, out of school time. It could be in an after school club. And so we need passionate educators to work with the students. A lot of times parents will get involved as well because they see the value of the program. And then it culminates with that typical fair at the school. It could be part of a STEM fair. And we see a lot of times schools or regions that'll do STEM fairs, and invention aligns really nicely with that. And so it could be a track within one of those STEM fairs. And then students and those that have inventions can advance up the ladder, like any sports or music or theater type competition program. So we will, right now we're in this regional and state finals that are happening all over the country right now. And those students that win at those levels will usually advance to the national competition that we host every year at the Henry Ford.
Excellent, excellent. And these are heavy hitters from the educational and then university aspect. And I imagine there's some industry support as well, different
Mhm.
for companies and organizations. Do you get professional kind of
Mhm.
support as well?
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of our funding partners are some of our primary funding partners they come from corporations, they come from foundations, they come from individual donors who see the value in this, and instilling these skills in kids at the youngest age. They see the value like starting in kindergarten. So RTX and the Lemelson Foundation, Project Management Institute, Educational Foundation, General Motors, they're some primary partners that help
Amazing.
support this program, but we also, beyond those funding partners, we work with a number of other youth serving organizations, whether it's 4-H. You might not think of 4-H. A lot of people think of 4-H as just serving agricultural, but they have a huge STEM track as well as entrepreneurship, civic education, and they see how Invention Convention just transcends all of that. So they're big partners with us. And we work with just a number of other youth serving organizations around the country because they see this as complementary to what they do.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, this I can see from that perspective and from the educator perspective. They're putting so much work in the day to day of trying to kind of raise these topics, and you and your organization and the great organization kind of having this program that is so thought out and is so purposeful in its intent must be so welcome. I mean, to a lot of people, that as soon as when a parent discovers, oh, my kid can be part of that, and then boom, they're all in, and all of a sudden they're a coach at the thing they hadn't heard of 6 months ago.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
right.
And they kind of see this
Mhm.
jewel, right,
Mhm.
of the Henry Ford Museum as this exemplifier of kind of what this could be. Henry Ford is this great inventor himself that also has the museum as a place where this can come to life. So, Phil, what is to the museum? What does this mean to be able to, let's talk, let's get into the National Convention. What does it mean to host this at the museum, and what does it kind of bring to the museum as well?
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple of things related to the museum and just our organization in general. I mean, I already talked about sort of the mission fit that's there, but I think that there is a real need that we see in the world where like our world is, and we reference it, our world is rapidly changing. And so how are you able to prepare young people for careers that we don't even know maybe what will exist in the next 5 to 10 years? So for us as an organization, and for the stories that we tell, we know that if we can expose young people early and often to these stories, it is more likely that they will be able to realize their potential and build these skills and kind of succeed and find these career pathways and set them up for success. And when you look at our stories, we were mentioning sort of the need for the different skills to not only be the inventor in the lab creating the idea, but then being out front talking. It makes me think of how our stories and the people that we share in the collections, the artifacts in the buildings out in Greenfield Village. I think of someone like a George Washington Carver, who was highly successful, not only because he was a great scientist, but he was an awesome artist. And he was able to combine those skills and bring them together. So when you look at how our stories can really be coaches and mentors for the next generation, it really puts it into context for us, especially when you get to the national competition, because we're not just talking now about the George Washington Carvers or the Rosa Parkses. We're actually now talking about these students who are ordinary people, just like the stories that we tell, who are being set up to change our world and really do extraordinary things. And so when you look at it from that sort of lens and vantage point, it really adds some depth to not only the stories that we have to share, but also us sort of getting out in front and thinking. We have this saying, every guest is my guest, a Henry Ford. And what that really means is when we approach people, we want to make sure that we recognize that they have the potential to change the world. And giving students a forum and a place amongst these great innovators, inventors that we know in our world gives them so much pride, gives them so much confidence. And if we can be just a piece of someone's journey, like that's the impact piece for us, that we want to be part of that journey. We want to inspire and we want to influence. So I think that creates an incredible environment that just, it's kind of an inventor's playground when you put it in the context of the museum and the people who are running around and sharing their ideas and meeting others.
Over the time of the convention, they're here for, is it a weekend or a few days at the museum? What kind of programming and hosting do you do to kind of just celebrate what they've done and give it the scale that it deserves?
I can take that one.
Sure.
Go ahead.
It's a 3-day experience, and I'll tell you, I've talked to kids from all over the country, and I've asked them what they thought of the Henry Ford. And my favorite was the fifth grader from Connecticut saying it was the Disneyland for geniuses, which I said, "I want to steal that and use that."
Mhm.
He got it. And if you talk to these kids when they arrived, it's not lost on them that their ideas could be on display at the Henry Ford someday. Like they realize this is a really special opportunity. Because a lot of these science fairs, they happen in just convention centers or hotels, and then when they come in, they're exhibiting their ideas next to some of these amazing innovations. It's not lost on them at all. So it's a 3-day event, and after months of culminating experience in the classroom, working on their projects, all that preparation, and they're selected to come. There's about 500 of them from around the country that are selected to come from kindergarten to 12th grade. Um, they arrive on Wednesday. They get set up. They're given a space on the museum floor. They get set up. They then get to explore the Henry Ford that day, meet other kids, go out and have a evening picnic in Greenfield Village. The highlight there is watching them take a Model T ride. You wouldn't believe how many kids just go nuts over that experience. It's really special. Where else can you do that? Um, and then the next day is not as much fun for them because they're a little nervous.
Sure,
With
sure.
10 minutes that day that they are going to meet and pitch their ideas to a team of 3 judges. And as Phil was talking about earlier, they're being measured on a rubric from, how well did they ideate that idea? What kind of market research did they do? How original was it? How is their communication skills? So there's a complicated rubric that they're measured against. And we've seen a few kids, become ill before or after that experience because it's
Sure.
stressful for them. We have therapy dogs to calm them down and fidget spinners and whatnot to help relax them. And we have very nice judges, I have to say. But it's still, when you have, especially some of those younger kids, it's a stressful
Mhm.
opportunity. But you watch them develop in that moment. I mean, I've seen so many kids and they talk afterwards like I wasn't comfortable speaking in front of others, and this experience has really helped me grow in my communication skills and my confidence. Um, and so that's really that's another nice byproduct of this experience. And then after they're done or before they pitch, we have all kinds of awesome experiences. We invite program alumni back, and they can meet program alumni and see where they are now. We have talk a little bit about this, but we have a lot of kids that have gone on to get patents on their ideas, youth inventors, and so they'll do some panels on those patented with those patented inventors. We offer workshops and project management. They get a chance to meet our sponsors like RTX and learn about careers in aerospace, and meet the USPTO and learn about intellectual property. And every single one of those kids thinks their idea is patent worthy. And I remember talking to one of our attorneys, and she was like, "It's 0.0000000% chance that you're going to get a patent." But we've had a pretty good success rate, I have to say. I'm really proud of them. Um, and so that's Thursday. And then Friday, they have a really nice showcase in the morning where they get to meet each other and talk to each other. It's a little lighter. It's, pressure's off, judging's done. And then we bring in the public. Public can come in and meet them and see some of these inventions. And then the afternoon culminates with an award ceremony. We give out about 80 awards. in categories and grades and sponsors and whatnot. And so that's a highlight, the culminating of the 3 days
Hmm.
for 'em, celebrate all their achievements. And we always like to say, they're all winners. All 500 of
Sure.
them that came are all winners. If they don't walk away with the trophy, they're still a winner. So,
And this is an experience, that the parents get to see
oh yeah,
their children kind of excel at this level. They, like you were saying, to connect. I'm sure some of them, many of them, make friends across the country that
yeah,
becomes this network of like-minded, and high-achieving um, kids, students, that does carry on. And a few of them probably meet at MIT or University of Michigan or RIT.
mhm,
So, and this is something that it didn't necessarily exist before, especially at this level, to be celebrated at this level, and to come to a place where you can see, where this progression can lead to. That you have one invention now, come see what Henry Ford did with all these patents and all these many inventions, and inspiring teams to create more, and learning a process that can create these products, and then creating the space where you can celebrate that. Yeah, I
yeah.
think that's really special. Phil, being an engagement expert and having that as such a big role of what you do, how does an event kind of make it all the more real, or what is the value of an event to this type of space?
Well, I think the event itself, right, to the point of, there isn't just one winner, right? There's multiple different categories and things like that we do there by age, by specialty or industry award, could be health and things like that. So it's not necessarily about the outcome. It's really the journey. And I think what the event allows students to do, especially with their families, is to celebrate that as an accomplishment in and of itself. And how, I mean, if you think about when I was growing up, I played sports. And so it was, you play the game, you win the tournament, you get the trophy, and that is your acknowledgement that you succeeded in something. And when you think about students who, and not to say that these inventors also don't play sports, but when you think about sort of people who are more inclined, who are looking for, how can I take my ideas into the real world? I'm taking a different path, right? There's other programs in the space like a First Robotics and things like that, but to be able to be showcased in this format, in this forum, to Carolyn's point, the confidence goes up. The feeling of achievement is incredibly high, and I think that it's not it's not about if they again go on to get that patent, but we hear from people who've been through this program, who have gone on to college, and maybe they became engineers, maybe they became, business, whatever, anything really. But they speak about how the skills that they built through this experience is really
Mhm,
what carried them to that place. And
mhm,
for them to be able to now go in front for a job interview to speak about this, to also
mhm,
talk about the intangible skills that they received, like, the event is great, but it's sort of what comes after that and what it transforms within them that really helps give them that boost, I think, for wherever they want to take their next step. And again, some of these are second graders who just have to go to third grade next year or
Sure,
something like that.
sure.
So, the repetitive and sort of the continuation of that journey, is the path looks different for everybody. But I think that it's really the journey, and
We
we
do.
talk innovation journeys all the time. And I think that's really just a part of the story.
It's incredible, and when you look at, sometimes we even if you look from a 30,000 foot view at some of the things at the Henry Ford, you see, oh, they made this thing. But what you guys do a lot is tell that backstory, that journey kind of way, and people, achievers, achieve throughout their lives, and they keep on. This is one of those kind of stair steps, as some really fantastic humans make their way into public life, and a career or a passion. All right, so we are looking towards, we're at states and regionals now, and then, Carolyn, the team's getting ready. So what's hosting this year's convention? What are you excited about for this year?
We have had tremendous momentum. We have gone from 200,000 students across the country to 300,000 students across the country in 1 year, which I'm still like a
Yeah,
little odd.
flabbergasted. Yeah,
I want to say I'm still like to even say that I'm always like, yeah, we're really
incredible.
proud of that. We have a incredible network that's bought in and passionate about this work. We're in with this is less than 2 months. What do we say, T minus 60 or whatever to count down, and we're just like
Mhm.
in the thick of it. The planning takes a team of subject matter experts that wear a lot of different hats. Then I would say we're a nonprofit and therefore we're a lean operation. But we are really fortunate to have some wonderful folks that work both here in Michigan and across the country that kind of come together and pull this experience off and for these families. Yeah, right now registration's just opened. So some students are starting to register for the experience. And we offer scholarships. So for some families in need, because it's very expensive, as you can imagine, to travel from
Yeah.
in California or Arizona or Texas, we have a scholarship program that's offered through the generosity of donors that covers the cost for the student and their parent to or chaperone to make the trip. And so just processing that, fulfilling that, helping coordinate that is a lot of logistical work. And then we have our judge registration going on. So we recruit hundreds of judges, both for online judging, because there's some online judging that goes on, as well as in-person judging. So we're out there actively recruiting judges right now. And then we have an event planning team. They take care of all the what happens during those 3 days, and that's the meals, the menus, the shuttle transportation, the accommodations, making sure that's all set up, the award ceremony, all those experiences. We have that educational programming team that's making sure all of this is skill building and knowledge building for these kids. So they're working on all the programs, coordinating that, getting that all set up. Something that sometimes goes overlooked, but it's really the main reason we have this competition is our competition integrity team. And that's also known as the judging process. And they're out there, recruiting judges, training judges, ensuring they know how to work with kids, and make this a good experience for those students. Um, like I mentioned, hundreds of judges that have to be orchestrated and coordinated for the day of experience, making sure they're all assigned to a number of kids. Then we have a marketing and communications team, and they do things from like really ordering really cool swag for the kids, and we're very intentional about what we give out. We make sure it's environmental. What we say, we practice what we preach, and that it's environmentally sourced. It's made in the United States. If possible, small makers. So we're supporting, you know, um, small makers and entrepreneurs. And then even the awards we give out, we don't just pick those out of a trophy book. They're not plastic. They're made with intentional materials by a small artist in Virginia. So we're very, very intentional about what we do. Um, and then they're filming at the event. They're posting on social and promoting it before, during, and after to get more interest in the program. And then beyond that primary invention convention team, we have the larger staff at the Henry Ford that we say they roll out the yellow carpet, yellow, not just picture of my
Yeah.
room happens to be the color to represent this program of brilliance, these bright students. And so we roll out the carpet for these students and their families, and the Henry Ford staff really treats every single one of them like they're the next Henry Ford. And they all love it. I hear from so many of our staff, whether it's the food in the food services department or our guest services department or our presenters. I just love that event when I meet those kids. They're the next generation. So they really,
Amazing.
our staff gets as much out of it as the families do, frankly.
I love that. And it sounds like, I mean, your experience, both of your experiences paying off. I mean, it's a well-oiled machine. Obviously, if any organization can take in 100,000 more, have a 50% increase in their attendees or their participants is pretty incredible that can happen. I'm sure not without its work and its long nights. So I'm sure everyone appreciates it. So that's the next couple months. And then Phil, just, speculate while we're here. What could this be in 5, 10 years? It's growing. You can't stop it. So what could it be if it continues on this trajectory? What would you like to see it be?
Yeah, well, I think a couple things. One, I mean, obviously the continued growth is what we would love to see with this program, and not so much necessarily at the nationals event or the statewide events, but we really want to see this growing at whether it's that classroom or more grassroots level. We just want more and more young people to be able to engage and have the opportunity to really practice and learn these innovative thinking habits and skills, right? Because that's going to be the thing that really moves all of us forward, regardless of how many get patents or become inventors in the future. So that's one. And then the other thing too is I think the work that we're doing, the more that we do it, I think we start to come to a greater depth of understanding, but also uncovering a lot more things that really help us really truly articulate the impact of what this program has, to the point where I would hope in 5 to 10 years it's not just students sort of earning awards at the National Invention Convention, but could we be credentialing students with literal professional credentials or certifications that are recognized by industry or potential people who are seeking young people for careers or higher education institutions, right? How can we really help students not just sort of practice these things, but also be recognized beyond the competition to show and prove that they are flexible and adaptable thinkers, right? They are critical thinkers, and those sort of durable or intangible skills that we know that all employers are looking for people to have.
Certainly, that a problem isn't a problem. It isn't without. Doesn't feel like it's impossible. I think that's life skills too. It's not just in the employment side of things. That's what I'm picking up here. Is just I could solve that. Every kid should think about. Well, I could probably think of 5 solutions for that.
Right.
And that's we're all looking for a little help in that way. And whether that is in an economic sense and being able to have a career or just in your daily life of not thinking that the problems are insurmountable this does a lot for that and in the confidence building.
Well,
Yeah.
Dan, sorry not to interrupt, but I even
Please.
I even think there's this sort of shift that occurs with something like this, right? And we talked about the young inventors and the impact they have on sort of themselves and us, but I think through this too, we've kind of learned and taken away, when you put students and young people in this position to be not just a part of the process or inventors, but like trusted in that and recognized for that, right? I think the work starts to look a little bit different. And it starts to shift, especially when you put them more in a position where they have agency over their own learning. So I think that's something too that we see and sort of want to lean into more of. How do we really leverage that and help these creative young people kind of have their own agency and really make an impact and be trusted in that to do that.
All the more valuable, that the tools are available to children, at an early age to accomplish so much more, whether, in the digital age and now with AI of being able to, I've just learned about vibe coding. I've always been stymied by coding, and I'm making web apps, from a few sentences and tweaking it and making it better. If I started on that at 10 years old, to make a solution for a real problem, I'm going to be by the time I'm 20, I'm going to have made, thousands of these things. So, but putting it in the right direction, making sure that it's focused on something that is going to feel good and that has value and can bring value to others. That's what's just so amazing about what you're doing. Carolyn, to wrap up, what personally do you love about this? Like, what are those favorite moments, throughout the year and particularly at the convention that are so rewarding for you?
Oh, it's meeting the students. And And sometimes we get caught up in the event and all the other folks that things we have to do. And I don't always have enough time to meet the students. And it's like missing your wedding or something at the end. You're like, oh, I missed that. So I think the biggest joy is going around and talking to some of these students. And then we have we continue the dialogue. I was texting with a student last night about an alumni that's coming back. And so, you get them in your text chat and they're texting you at 10 o'clock at night and you're like, okay, kid, so I'm going to bed. But no, I think I have been blown away by the just pure genius out of these youngsters, and their personalities and their empathy and what they're doing. I mean, we had this young guy from Pennsylvania who came up with a few years ago the social emotional learning bench, and he came up with this idea because at school his buddy would get really upset and he couldn't control his emotions, and he watched that happen and he wanted to help him out. So this bench had like little different moods to sit in if you were, to basically kind of calm down, and the way he presented the story would just bring tears to your eyes. He was like in third grade. He was, wonderful. And then, we've had a young girl, that came up with a curly girl helmet, and it was, bike helmets weren't fitting her hair well. And so she came up with it where it would have holes in it to be more comfortable for her head. That was really personal and meaningful to her. And then a high schooler, I'm so excited about this. Actually, I think he was in middle school. He lived in Connecticut. Anyone has deer problems. We have deer problems here in Michigan. People get Lyme disease, which is horrible. He's come up with a rapid test for Lyme disease that he invented like in 8th grade. He's now at the University of Chicago, and he's got his own biotech firm, and he's bringing that to market this summer. And he's flying
Wow.
up 22. I'm going to meet him for the first time because he competed in Invention Convention before I got involved, and so I'm so excited to meet him. And he's going to come back to the Henry Ford and meet the kids and tell us
Yeah.
story. And we're so
You might
excited.
be scouting. I think you might be scouting for some future
I hope
employees.
so.
Yeah,
I just
probably.
want the story I love to share is this youngster is amazing. Nathaniel grew up in Atlanta, and rains a lot in Atlanta, and he'd be going to school with his dad would be walking him to school, and they struggle to stay dry under the umbrella. So him and his whose dad had some patent engineering experience, helped devise, like using selfie sticks, a dual handle umbrella for the the kid to hold the bottom handle and the parent to hold the upper handle to keep them dry. And, they tinkered with this when they were in Atlanta and filed for patents, and they moved to California where it doesn't rain as much. But he got involved in the Invention Convention in California, competed when he was in 8th grade, came to the Henry Ford, won the Originality Award for the dual handle umbrella, then somehow got connected to Shark Tank, and Shark Tank brought him on the show, and he pitched his idea and got $100,000 to go to market with the Duo. And that dual handle umbrella we now sell at the Henry Ford stores. It's on Amazon, Nordstrom, Target. Kid invented.
Wow.
And so Nathaniel's now 11th grade. He's been back to the Henry Ford 3 times since competing to share his story and inspire others. And I was really taken aback by, how insightful he is. He says, Invention Convention is as much about the convention as it is about the invention.
Hmm.
And by the convention, he's not talking about the 3-day event. He's talking about the community that supported him in this. The teachers, his parents, the affiliate, other educators, the Henry Ford, patent attorneys. He says, without that, I wouldn't be where I am today, and so
Mhm.
he really credits that. And I just found that to be so insightful. And I'm excited he'll be coming back again this year. He's like autographing, the kids love him. He's like a celebrity. He's like our
That-
Michael Jordan,
Of course, great. Yes, and he and still in high school. Amazing.
Yes, he's still in high
Uh,
school. Yeah.
Well, I think that point, I want to thank you both for your time today. That point is an excellent place to wrap, because as I've worked through this and talked now with 50 plus different festivals, events, cultural experiences. it starts off, I think a lot of people's perception about an event or a convention is maybe to sell something or to enjoy and relax or to, you don't think about it. I think we all know in our hearts or in the back of our minds that this is a place where I can have a life-changing experience, but it's kind of not in the forefront. And what you are doing is creating kind of the space for that. And I think you're holding it to a very high standard, and the standard of the Henry Ford as well adds to that, the prestige of that. So I just, say congratulations on all the success and thank you for what you're doing for our world. And I hope you continue. I want to come down and visit in June. It's not just down the road from me, so I'll bring my son to inspire him a little bit, and we'll share the story and get everyone interested. Is there a central kind of web page or place if someone doesn't have this experience at their school or in their community that they can get involved?
Yeah, go to inventionconvention.org, O-R-G, and there's a contact us button there, and let us know, and we will support you, connect you if we have a state affiliate, and if we don't have a state affiliate, we have other ways to support you through the Henry Ford. So we welcome all kinds of folks to reach out and get involved.
And if you're looking for that employee that, not now, but 10 years from now, this is a good place to help scout that, I think.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you both again, and I look forward to meeting you in person soon.
Thanks, Dan. We appreciate it.
Dan.
That was Carolyn Ward and Philip Grumm from the Henry Ford and Invention Convention Worldwide. What stood out to me in that talk is that this really isn't a competition about winning and losing. It's about giving students tools to see problems differently and confidence to do something about them. And that's what makes this event so powerful. It's not just a moment, it's a starting point for the rest of their lives. From classrooms to regional showcases to the national stage, these students are learning how to think, build, communicate, and collaborate in ways that carry far beyond the event itself. Now, if you want to learn more about the Invention Convention or how to get involved, you can find links in the show notes. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow Event Explorer for more stories from the people and events shaping culture, creativity, and community around the world. That's it for this episode. Thank you for listening. I'm Daniel Roth, and until next time, happy exploring.